This is our third meeting of our Walker County Animal Care Ordinance. We have publicized this in the paper and the legal organ, which is the Walker County Messenger. The first two meetings were really designed to gather public information in a very open forum. And then as we are moving forward to implement ordinance by the end of this month, to follow Georgia statute and requirements for our meetings, we have to publish these meetings in the legal organ, and we've done so, showing this as a public hearing. And so this is about a 28-page document. I hope y'all have looked at this online, or you see the link there. If you want to pull it up on your smartphone or tablet, you can review this ordinance. We had a great turnout on May the 1st at our second meeting, which is up at the Civic Center. And I think we had probably about 225 people show up. And I told the audience that night that if I had known that we could put the word chickens out in our ordinance, that we could have packed the house, I would have put chickens on the agenda every meeting to get people to show up to get involved. Because our goal with this is to get you engaged and let you be a part of the process, and to give every citizen in Walker County the opportunity to have a seat at the table, so to speak, to be able to have input. And we've learned a lot, and we have found out some very unique things about agriculture and livestock and animals in our county that us city boys didn't know. And so it's been a real learning opportunity for us and to get input. And just to give one example, when we had an original ordinance trying to look at if it made sense for our community to have something in there about the number of animals based off of property sizes or acreage or things of that nature, we got a really good email from Alan Painter, who's very well involved into honeybees. And he said, did y'all realize that honeybees are considered livestock in the state of Georgia? Well, how in the world are you going to count honeybees? So there were some things like that we realized very quickly, and made the announcement at that second meeting that everything to do with as far as numbers of animals from livestock had been completely stripped out of the draft that they could find online. We got a lot of good comment at that meeting about whether or not it made sense to have limitations in certain areas or certain zonings for even dogs or cats. And we had some very good public comment where people said, you know, they had ownership of, say, 10 or 12 dogs. They kept them in their home. And they said, you can come anytime and you will see that our animals are very well taken care of. They sleep inside at night. We have all their shot records, all their vet records. And we love our animals as our own children. And we take great care of these animals because they're part of our family. But I can take you down the road and show you a house where they're abusing the two animals. You know, so we realized very quickly that a true animal care ordinance, numbers don't really matter. It's about how the animals are being treated, how they are maintained and properly cared for, and also, most importantly, if those animals, regardless if they're domestic or livestock, are being a public nuisance. And so a lot of times you may have a neighbor that's got a dog that at 3 o'clock in the morning just barking all the time, and you can't sleep because it's just barking for 2 or 3 hours nonstop. That's considered a nuisance. And so our team internally has worked real hard to take all of the comments, all the emails, all the public feedback to help refine that ordinance that best fits our community, to get the best buy-in, and to focus on the animal care and also the nuisance side of it, and get completely away from the limitations of any type of numbers. So when you look at that ordinance, we have gone through anything that has been taken out. It's got a line through it. So we didn't want to take things out without you being able to see what we took out of the draft. So it's just got a line through it. Then everything that's been added, any verbiage that's been added, actually is shadowed in gray and is a heavier font where you can see that it's kind of highlighted in a grayscale. Another comment that was very good to me that I found that really made a lot of sense, some simple things where people could trip up the ordinance. Things like we had in there that all animals should have proper amount of food and water. Well, that sounds very straightforward, but a person made the suggestion that it has to be sanitary food and water, not muddy water, not stagnant water, not water that's full of mosquito larvae or whatever. It needs to be sanitary. And so you don't want somebody tripping you up or the code enforcement officer saying, well, there's water there, it's muddy, but it's water. The ordinance says food and water, there's the water. So those are the type of comments and things where we wanted to engage our citizens to come in and have a seat at the table to help us craft this and find those things to give the best care to our animals and for our citizens. And our very first meeting that we had back on January the 30th at the library in Lafayette, we had about 83 people there, and the consensus at the end of that meeting, for those of you who were here at that meeting, was that the animals are really not our problem. It's the people that don't take care of their animals, or the people that abuse them, neglect them, or the owners that allow them to become a public nuisance by letting them out and they go across the street and tear their neighbor's garbage up. Or they're barking at 3 o'clock in the morning for no reason. And we know there's guard dogs and things like that. If somebody comes on your property, that your dog alerts you, and those are understandable. But you know what I'm talking about, where you've got cases where the dog just barks every day or every night just because they love to bark. So there's a unique difference there. So we've made a lot of headway on this. We really appreciate you coming tonight and getting involved in the process. And at this time, we'll let Joe call out the first name. And again, if you'll come up to the podium, and we'll let you address the public.
That's Frederick.
And since we don't have microphones, if everybody be sure and speak up. I know we've got some people in the room that getting like me, getting hard of hearing. So please, when you come to the podium, please speak up loudly.
I'm here for my 4 pit bulls. I've read where you're banning some animals, certain breeds of dogs.
That's not true.
Because I'm not going to give them up to anybody where they'd be given to a home where they're going to be abused when they was at a loving home in the beginning, or go to a home that's going to fight them. One of my pit bulls is a rescue dog. He was a bay dog. I nourished him from where he was when I got him. And that dog is the best dog I have on my yard. Now, I have a bunch of little dogs too. Well, not a bunch, but a couple. But I have one. She's known, she'll be the quickest one to nip somebody if they're in the wrong. And I agree with you on good dog animals. Their water should be cleaned, especially it getting hot. I clean mine 2 times a day. I make sure my chickens are watered, my dogs are watered, and my goats. But I just don't see why are we allowed certain many dogs on a certain amount of acres?
That has all been taken out. There's no restrictions in the revised ordinance on quantity of dogs at any level.
Because I don't care, say, if she's my neighbor and she's got like 15 dogs and cats. I don't care if she's got that many, as long as she's taking care of them.
That's right. And the revised ordinance reflects that. She could have 20 dogs as long as she's taking care of them, keeping them vaccinated, taking care of them, on a daily basis, and they're not becoming a nuisance to a neighbor, she'd be completely fine.
And I was at the last meeting, and I did have an idea about how to help with the animals being dropped off and thrown out.
Okay.
Why don't you do like the rabies event that y'all just had? Do a spay and neuter half price. Because some people can't afford $400, $300 spay and neuter.
Right. Well, we had an event toward the end of last year where Chattanooga, up in the city of Chattanooga, had a grant, and you could take male dogs or cats and have them for $9. And so anytime we get that information, we try to pass that out. But financially, countywide, we don't have the funding to be doing that from a county standpoint. I'm not sure where that grant came from, but they got that grant and opened that up to all the citizens of Walker County.
Oh, I use Chattanooga.
Yeah,
with the
and so
ratings
for
and everything.
$9 for a male dog or cat is just, you can't find that anywhere, so. Also, you mentioned about the breed of dog, there's not anything in there about breed, I don't think so. You're gonna find some cities, actually, if you live in the city,
I don't live in the city.
okay, and this ordinance only pertains to the unincorporated parts of the county, but there are some cities around that are putting ordinances in place or have them in place that regulates the type of breed. But the county ordinance and the direction we're going at this time does not address breed.
I live out way in the country, so
Yeah.
that's the reason why I won't live in the city limits.
So it sounds like to me, we've been able to accommodate and address those two very important concerns that you have. So I think
Oh,
we're
yeah,
in good
'cause
shape.
I'll put up a fight before I give them up.
I understand. So we don't want you to have to give them up. As long as you're taking good care of them like you are, you're in good shape.
Oh, they eat before I do. I'll go hungry, and they have their dog food or whatever they need.
Well, I'm glad you love them and take good care of them. Thank you for speaking tonight.
Oh, no problem.
Okay, Joe, who we got next?
Next up is Gina Dorset.
My name's Gina Dorset, and I am an animal advocate. As you know, I've spoken before. First of all, I want to thank you for this whole process that you're going and doing all this. I really appreciate how you are going through this and allowing people to put in their opinions, thoughts, and concerns. And I do have several concerns with the ordinance as it is. I have been working diligently, searching other animal ordinances throughout the United States, cities, counties, and state ordinances. I realize I can't have what I want, which is no tethering. I realize that. If we have to have tethering, I want some very clear and concise provisions to protect these animals.
Yes.
I know we have.
And that's our
a few.
goal as well, so.
Yes, okay. One of the provisions I would like to have is felony provisions for cruelty to animals, for first-time offenders. And I want, and these are laws that I looked up. This is what I picked and chose that I thought maybe we can get these on the books. You said you wanted to do it and do it right and put this baby away, and that's how I feel. I know you're not gonna wanna pick this up again for a long time.
That's right.
So I want it done and done right as much as we possibly can get in here. So that's very important to me. Cruelty to animals should be a felony, and I think granting civil immunity to veterinarians who report suspected animal abuse to be, just have immunity to that. Allow them to be able to speak with no problem.
Yeah.
Hot cars, we do have something in there for hot cars, but I would also like the community, if they see an animal, and this happens a lot, and as summer's coming and we live in the South, they see an animal in a closed-up car. People leave their children in cars. They leave their animals in cars. Allow them to be able to, if they try to find the person, can do what they can, a reasonable amount of time, break into that vehicle without being any repercussions against them, to try to save that animal. I think it should be a felony for dog fighting, and there's a lot to that. I just want to say that should be a felony. I've sent all of this with my comments.
Okay, good.
Okay? Domestic violence, I think the dogs should be protected, and the court should allow the person that is the petitioner of domestic violence to be able to take that dog or cat or whatever it is, because they use that against a person that is being abused. And they will kill that animal or abuse it or whatever they have to use that as a manipulation ploy. As far as tethering, and I did speak to, and Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so we went back and forth a little bit, but here again, clear and concise laws, rules. Multiple dogs on a tether, people will do that, and they'll get tied up, and they'll choke and kill themselves, or fight, or who knows what'll happen. If dogs are sick or suffering or ill, debilitating diseases, in distress, advanced stages of pregnancy, or under 6 months of age, they should not be tethered. Don't put a dog out there and tether a dog when they're suffering or in these kind of conditions. We have that in there. There's also a law for swivel, to suggest putting a swivel so they won't get caught up and tangled on something. Time, out in severe weather, time limitations. I mean, we need time limitations when, you know, temperatures are above 90 degrees. I mean, it gets very hot here, and below 30. We should limit the time on that. The weight of the chain. I don't think we should have these logging chains on dogs. I've seen puppies in logging chains. That's just not necessary. We should put weights on that. Tether so that I just have all the stipulations so that they stay on the person's property, they don't go into other people's property, that it's a safe area, no hazards, that they can jump off of a porch. I have seen that, and they get hung. They think it's okay, but it's not. That can happen. I mean, jumping in a pool and drowning, there's all kinds of stipulations for fences, getting caught up in all kinds of things. And then the severe weather, like extreme heat, cold winds, snow, hail. When the weather service is putting out an advisory, why can't our animals supposed to be in a protected area and not outside being tethered? As you know, I saw these dogs. I still see these dogs. They're still out there. They're still on chains, 24/7, 365 days a year, in the freezing weather, in the horrible heat. And they have nothing but a plastic house that half the time is knocked over, and I don't know if they have food or water. I don't know what's going on. This is my concern. You know, I'm an animal advocate. I volunteer at McCamey. I volunteer at Walker County. I try and do everything I can to help animals. This just came across my web that I do a lot of work in a lot of other areas besides locally. This isn't a dog. You probably can't even tell. It is so twisted and tied up on the tether in the wires. It has died. It strangled itself to death. That's the kind of things that are happening. We have, I think it's 14 counties that have no tethering. And I think it's 22 states that have no tethering. And as I told you, 2.8 times more likely a child, a person is going to be bit by a dog that is chained or tethered, because they're not getting the socialization, they're not being able to be active with their family, and they don't know the difference between you, my friend, or an enemy, because they've not learned that. So when your daughter or son come walking up to that dog, if I have it chained and it's been there for a long time, that dog, it's fight or flight. They don't know what you are. Are you an enemy? I don't know. These are the issues that we're facing. There was a dog here in Walker County that was called 3 times, called on to do something about this problem that was chained up. Well, the third time, thank God, and I think it was David Brown that picked this dog up and got it back to the animal shelter. And Stephanie worked diligently hard, calling for help, because the dog had a chip, trying to figure out where does this dog belong. Well, she called McCaney. Long story short, she helped her figure out by going through the system of chips where to find where this dog came from. Well, it came from McCaney. That dog was adopted from McCaney, who works and spends a lot of money and a lot of volunteers taking care of these dogs. And this dog was adopted out in Walker County. Let me just show you these pictures. This is the dog. Stephanie called me, can you pick up this dog and get it back to McCaney? Skin and bones. Skin and bones. That dog had no food, no water, living in filth. Living in its own feces and urine. And that's the kind of cases that happen. People get a dog and they put it on a tether and they forget about it a lot of times. If we don't put some stipulations and rules, it's going to be the same story. How are you going to say, well, you shouldn't have that dog out there. I think it's been out there, for a long time, but if there's no rule saying you can't be out there for no more than 10 hours, and we have to depend on neighbors, good neighbors, to call up, to say something.
Well, I appreciate all the comments and research that you've done, and I know you have been a tremendous support to our animal shelter, and you bring a lot of value to our community. I want to thank you for all that you have done. I'm glad you've submitted everything to Matt, because I think you bring up a lot of very good points of some additional guidelines we can put in on the tethering side of it to help protect these animals, because this type of treatment is not going to be acceptable in our community going forward. And so we want to refine this. But you brought up some good points. The only thing I'm not sure about is our ability with an ordinance at the local level to be able to make something a felony. I don't know.
There are actually, Mr. Dorsett, a couple of things that I wanted to bring to your attention. Some of the concerns that you raised initially would be beyond what we as a county are capable of doing. Particularly, we can't grant immunity for people who would break in an animal out of a hot car, because the decision on whether to prosecute someone for that offense is not a county ordinance issue.
Is that on our state?
Yes, ma'am.
That is on the state law?
It would be.
That's what I want to know.
It would be up to the sheriff's department and the district attorney's office to decide whether to prosecute.
So it would need to be a state
That's
dog ordinance.
That's correct. There would need to be some ordinance at the state level that would grant immunity for.
And we
for
don't
those
have that,
offenses.
do you know? Because I don't.
I do not know, but I don't believe so.
Okay, I don't believe so either.
Dog fighting, I believe, is already a felony, and there are provisions in this ordinance that address dog fighting. I don't think that we have the capability of taking dogs away from convicted domestic abusers. I think that gets into equal protection and due process concerns. People have a right to their property, and they have a right to due process when a government entity deprives them of that property. I don't know that a county can legally condition pet ownership.
So that would be another state law?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The tethering provisions, I think that based on the discussions you and I have, I think that the suggestion that we make clear the adequate food and water, meaning uncontaminated food and water, I think that's a very good suggestion. And I think that my recommendation to the commissioner is going to be that we do change that to make that more clearer. With regard to the other provisions, that's a policy decision I think that we need to make reflecting both the concerns that you've raised and the concerns of our citizens and their own property rights, which I've expressed to you.
So you had some good points, but I think in summary, there's some things that state law is gonna limit us to be
Sure.
able to address.
Sure.
But that doesn't keep us all from advocating our state legislators to
That's
try
right.
to work on that.
That's where I started.
Yes. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, I appreciate it.
Okay, Joe, who do we have next?
All right, forgive me if I get your name wrong. It looks like Laurel Carter.
No, I just signed it, I wasn't gonna speak to the dog, did you?
Okay,
Oh,
Alright.
sorry, can I add one more thing?
yes.
I wanted to know if you can, with your ability to the website and everything, to request for volunteers at the animal shelter. They're in dire need of help.
Is that on there
It's
now?
on our website. There's a volunteer application packet.
Okay.
It's on the website in the animal shelter section and, I don't know
But
how
anytime we
regularly
can
post
toot
it
that
on
horn.
Facebook.
Yes, absolutely. We can do more to promote that.
My understanding is there's
Then
an issue
address.
with using prisoners because of interaction with ladies.
We need people walking dogs.
But that would rehabilitate some of the prisoners.
Okay, to keep us moving forward, Joe, who do we have next?
Kim O'Shields, is that?
Kim, yes, ma'am. Go right ahead. Please speak up.
Okay. I have a concern with the underground wire and the shock collar on the dogs. I have spoke to Allison at the animal shelter, because at the end of my street, there's a mixed pit dog, and they used to have it tethered 24/7, day and night. Well, the guy had put in that underground wire, now he's got that shock collar on. I still am uncomfortable with walking my dog down the street because that dog is so angry. I've called Allison to complain and to get information about that. And she said there was nothing they could really do about it until more residents complained about it. But she did tell me that they do pick up dogs, quite a few dogs that are wearing those collars. They do break that barrier because they're angry enough to go through it. And they're chasing whatever they're chasing. But then, they're too scared to go back home to get back through that barrier. Now, I've got an elderly neighbor between me and that house at the end of the street that just had back surgery. Well, I saw him and his wife walking early the other morning, and I stopped and warned him about that dog. And he just had back surgery. If that dog breaks that barrier, after that poor guy that has just had back surgery, there's no getting away from that dog. I have an issue with that collar and that underground fence.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. We've taken that into our record. We'll look at that section a little more closely. Okay, Joe, who do we have next?
Janice Bryant is next.
Hi. All I have is a concern for a later date. I'm really happy with the livestock that you struck, all that language. It seems like you're properly doing the dogs. It has to do with the account, the care, rather than the amount of animals present. My question is, in the future, when there are agricultural areas, people buy land and it's zoned agriculture, and then they complain about the agriculture around them, and also lands where there's livestock always been there, but it grows up in its residential area now. I would like to know what happens in the future about language and livestock.
Well, as far as we feel at this time that we've got the language in good setting for what we've heard, we're not getting any negative feedback of the language of the livestock. So we hope
Right.
we've got that
I
right.
guess I'm just concerned about what happens in the future how does the language change if it changes in the future? Is it another meeting, or is that something that's done?
Okay, that's what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah, anytime we make a change to an ordinance, we have to advertise it in the paper, and we have to hold 2 public meetings
Good, you answered my
and
question.
release that to the media. So yeah, we can't just in the cover of night or just a meeting where nobody's attending, just make a change. We have to follow
Those are my
this
only
process.
questions. Thank
Okay, good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Joe,
Team number 8.
you're good now? Okay, thank you.
Sharon's
Anyone else? Okay, I think we've got everybody covered there tonight. Thank you for your comments. We heard some good concerns. I feel like we're on the right path and making the right decisions. And thank you for taking part in this public session. And we want to be transparent and open and make sure that we're doing things that are satisfying the vast majority of our citizens and moving our county in the proper way. So at this time, we will take and adjourn the actual public hearing. And then we will move over to our next agenda, which is our regular scheduled meeting. The first part was a public hearing. We will now follow into our regular scheduled meeting. It's now officially 6:36 p.m. And at this time, we, in our packet, we have meetings. We had a couple of, I had one special call meeting back on March the 21st, where we have the minutes from that meeting. Anyone that has reviewed these minutes, is there any concerns, questions, or changes? Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, we've got those packets we'll hand out. If anybody would like a packet, I think we got about 20, so we'll have to get y'all to share, so you can follow along. You have 3 sets of minutes. First one's from March 21st, 2018, which was a special called meeting. We have a regular scheduled meeting on March the 22nd, and also on April the 19th. You'll find those minutes from those meetings, and we will enter those into the record unless someone sees a correction or concern or something we need to make note of. So on the March 21st minutes, is there any concerns or questions on those? Hearing none, we'll sign those into the record of our business. And then also we have our meeting notes from the regular scheduled meeting of March the 22nd. Is there any questions, corrections, or concerns about the minutes from March 22nd? Hearing none, we'll sign those into the record. And then we have our April 19th minutes, same thing there. Any questions, concerns, or comments on those? Hearing none, we'll enter those into the record. Okay, next under new business, we have a resolution R-009-18 declaring property of the Walker County Sheriff's Office is unserviceable surplus and removed from the county inventory. See Exhibit A. So we have Exhibit A that lists some tan uniform shirts, vest, some old Canon printers. It says, please declare the following equipment as surplus and removed from county inventory. Items 1 and 2 are tentatively going to be purchased by the Chattooga County Sheriff's Office. Items 3 and 7 will be disposed of as they are unserviceable. So we have a resolution for those that we have to do. Resolution R-009-18, whereas it's been determined by the Walker County Commissioner's Office that certain property described in the list attached hereto as Exhibit A has become excess and of no use for the purpose for which it is intended, whereas it is evident that the property should be declared unserviceable and surplus by Walker County. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Walker County Commissioner Shannon Whitfield, hereby declare the subject property unserviceable and surplus of no use to the county. Be further resolved, and it be hereby resolved that said excess property be disposed of, and that this declaration be entered into the minutes of the county record and properly recorded in the county property inventory records. Be resolved the 10th day of May 2018. Is there any questions or comments or concerns about this resolution? Hearing none, we'll enter this resolution into the record. All resolutions have to be attested by the county clerk. Okay, item number 2, Resolution R-10-18 to amend the Walker County Animal Shelter and Adoption Center budget for general supplies and materials in the amount of $10,000. These funds were from private donations made to Walker County Animal Shelter and Adoption Center. Resolution R-1018, resolution amending the fiscal year 2018 budget to supplement the general supplies and material general fund for the Walker County Animal Shelter and Adoption Center for the purpose. Whereas OCGA 4-11-9.3 provides that it shall be the duty of persons impounding an animal under code section of Georgia law to make reasonable and proper arrangements to provide impound animals humane care and adequate and necessary veterinary services, including but not limited to providing shelter and care for animals at the state, federal, county, municipal, and governmental facilities of shelter. Whereas OCGA 3681-3D requires any increase in appropriation at the legal level of control of the local government, whether accomplished through a change in expected revenues in any funds or through a transfer or appropriations among departments, shall require approval of the governing authority, ordinance, or resolution. And whereas the Walker County Animal Shelter and Adoption Center is a legal constitute department of Walker County government tasked with the responsibilities of providing humane care and adequate and necessary veterinary services to impound animals. And whereas Walker County Animal Shelter and Adoption Center is in need of funds to carry out and accomplish its responsibilities, including spading and neutering, impounded dogs and cats. And whereas the Walker County Animal Shelter and Adoption Center receives donations for the purpose of helping to defray the cost of operations and to carry out the accomplishments, its responsibilities, including spading, neutering, impounding dogs and cats. Whereas Walker County Animal Shelter and Adoption Center has received a donation in the amount of $10,000 for said operations. Therefore, hereby resolved, number 1, the Walker County Governing Authority appropriates $10,000 to the general supply and material general funds of the Walker County Animal Shelter and Adoption Center. 2, the Walker County Governing Authority thanks those members of the community and the county employees who continue to support Walker County Animal Shelter and Adoption Center through donations, volunteer work, and otherwise contributions to the functioning and performance of the Walker County Animal Shelter and Adoption Center, this the 10th day of May 2018. Shannon K. Whitfield, sole Commissioner of Walker County, Georgia. A little background of this: we have received these funds in donation. We have experienced increased cost at our animal shelter because we have had a lot of focus on saving as many dogs and cats as we can and not euthanizing animals due to space or other reasons that may shorten the life of an animal that could be adopted out or sent to a rescue for further adoption. So when you are euthanizing less animals, you have more animals on hand that have to be fed twice a day. So we have seen an increased usage and need for more food to be purchased. And also we instituted an internal policy last year that our best practice policy is that before any animal goes out of the shelter, that we have that animal spayed and neutered before it is adopted out. Now there are exceptions to that, but that is our best practice. If an animal's too young, or if an animal's on medication where it cannot be performed, then we work with that person adopting to try to see that they follow through with that, but that's on a very limited special basis. But the best practice all the time is that we have that animal spayed and neutered before it goes out to help control our population. So this resolution gives the animal shelter the funding in that general line item to purchase additional food and also to have the spading and neutering done as needed. Any questions or comments on this resolution? Hearing none, we'll sign this resolution into the record and approve this. Again, being a resolution, our clerk attest this was done properly. Okay, item number 3, Resolution R-1118 for the modification of the August 24th, 2015 loan between the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority, GEFA, and Walker County per the C&D landfill expansion project. This is quite a lengthy document, so I'm not going to read all of this, but basically, in summary, what this is, and this complete information is available on the website, so if you want to go through and read all of this. But back in 2015, Walker County government, under the previous administration, started down a path of a landfill expansion for C&D material, because they knew, based off of the projections of volume and airspace, that the landfill was going to run out of space at the C&D landfill. Under my administration, we have been working through this process with the state, but there's a lot of things that have to be done as far as water monitoring wells installed, engineering work. There's tens of thousands of dollars of required investment that has to be made in order to get the landfill permitted in requirement. So the previous administration made the decision to borrow $1 million for that expansion. And so when I took office, they had expenditured, I think, somewhere between $600,000 or $700,000 of that. Fortunately, that is on a reimbursement schedule. So when the county spends money to install inspection wells or engineering services, the county has to pay those bills, and then they submit them to the state to make sure they qualify, and then they do a reimbursement back and charge it against the loan. I'm glad it's that way, because if it hadn't have been, it had probably been maxed out back in 2015, and we would owe the $1 million already, and nothing would have got done. So fortunately, it's a pretty structured program, but there's provisions in here of timelines that have to be met. And so the reason this is being modified, the terms and conditions are not being changed, it's just the timelines are being updated. Because when we came into this administration, the project was already behind schedule. And so we've worked with the state, worked with their engineers in order to move this project forward. But we're projecting now in the project schedule, which is on page 6, Exhibit A, page 3, for a bid opening probably in January 2019, notice to proceed, completion of construction in April of 2019. So we feel pretty good about moving this project forward and getting this done first half of 2019. But there's still a lot of work that has to be done in order to make this happen. So there is a resolution here that I'll need to read. Anything else we need to do?
No, sir.
Okay, because there's some places here Matt's got to sign too. So I will read this because this is an actual resolution that we needed to have in this meeting. This is resolution of the governing body, Exhibit F, recipient Walker County, loan number 2014L19SW. A duly called meeting of the governing body of the borrowing identified above, the borrow held on this date, which will be May the 10th, 2018. The following resolution was introduced and adopted. Whereas the borrower has borrowed $1 million from the Georgia Environmental Authority, the lender, pursuant to the terms of the loan agreement. The loan agreement dated August 24th of 2015. So keep that in mind. This is not a new loan. This is an existing loan that's been around for now going on 3 years between the borrower and the lender. Whereas the borrower's obligation to repay the loan made pursuant to the loan accepted is evidence of the promissory note, the note dated August 8th, 2015 of the borrower, whereas the borrower and the lender have determined to amend and modify the note and the loan agreement pursuant to the terms of the third modification of the promissory note and loan agreement. The third modification between the borrower and the lender, the form of which has been presented to this meeting. Now therefore be it resolved by the governing authority or the governing body of the borrower that the form, terms, and conditions and the execution, delivery, and performance of the third modification is hereby approved and authorized. Be it further resolved by the governing body of the borough that the terms of the third modification and in the best interest of the borough and the governing body of the borough designated and authorized the following person to execute and deliver and to attest respectfully the third modification and any related documents necessary to the consumption and transaction commenced by the third modification. So it has a place here for myself to sign and also to be attest, and also the seal will be also put on there by the clerk. So is there any questions about this modification?
So does the modification extend the payback period, is that, or the withdrawal period?
Both. So the way this is working now, it's an interest-only payback, and then once the project is completed and it's operational, that would kick in the closure of the loan, which would institute the payback. The way this loan is set up, it's on a 20-year payback.
So the revenue from seeing deal cover it?
Hopefully, yes, that's the way it's intended, yes.
Well, I think it wouldn't have before, I assume it will now, that you're
Yeah, well, thank you. We have made a lot of progress there with our landfill operation.
Well, I go out there and I can tell you.
Yes, thank you very much. Anything else? Payne, I don't know, is there anything you needed to add to this?
No, you got it covered.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll go ahead and enter this into the record. Okay, so this page has to be attested by the clerk. And let's go back to that, just make sure we're not missing anything. Okay, yeah, there are 3 copies of this that we've got to sign, so if y'all just bear with us here. Okay, so the borrowing attorney has to sign here. Okay, and then our clerk will attest that page. getting close, folks. I think government kills more trees than anybody. Okay, now we get into the good stuff. Proclamation declaring May 16th Senior Citizen Day. The Sole Commissioner of Walker County, Georgia, proclamation Senior Citizen Day. Whereas the U.S. Census Bureau estimates nearly 12,000 Walker County residents are 65 or older, and whereas Walker County recognizes the impact and contribution made by older adults to our community, and whereas May is Older American Month in the state of Georgia, and residents are encouraged to share stories online about older adults who embody the theme and engage at every age. Now this is what you need to pay attention to. Using the hashtag. Okay, we need our older adults to use hashtag. I guess that's OAM18. So hashtag OAM18. And whereas older adults are encouraged to take part in activities that promote physical and mental and emotional well-being, and whereas Walker County supports organizations like the North Georgia Community Action, which operates senior life centers in Chickamauga and Lafayette to assist older adults with daily nutritional needs, healthy education, and general wellness, and whereas Walker County desires to recognize and honor the older adults of our community. Therefore, I, Shannon Whitfield, Sole Commissioner of Walker County, do hereby proclaim May 16th as Senior Citizen Day in Walker County. In witness thereof, I've understood to set my hand in cause and seal of Walker County to officiate to the 10th day of May in the year 2018, Shannon K. Whitfield. There is actually a free event that's held each year at the Walker County Civic Center for all of our seniors that can participate in, and that starts, I think, about 10 or 10:30 in the morning and goes most of the afternoon, and they serve a good meal, and the highlight of the day is bingo. So, if you are a senior adult and you want to play bingo, come on, we'll be there. I'll be there working.
Any gambling going on, or is it just?
No, it's just for fun.
I think they do it undercover. I don't know.
There may be some table game going on we're not privy to. But officially, no. Okay, the last item on our official agenda is our department statistics. We try to have this ready for the first of every month. And I'm always excited to report the progress that we're making in our county. In the month of April, we were able to adopt, rescue, or return to owner 87 dogs. We only had to euthanize 3 dogs. We're only euthanizing now due to animals that are vicious or dangerous animals that need to be put down, or animals that they're just not healthy and are just not going to survive, that are suffering. And so we have continued to work to reduce those numbers and give every dog or cat a chance and opportunity to survive. Our code enforcement found 229 properties completely in compliance. They found 80 that had violations where they wrote some type of citation, whether it be an actual for fine or for warning. Most importantly, they were able to close 55 cases. So that means we've had 55 properties that they were able to work with the property owners and get them into compliance as far as our property maintenance ordinances. So for the year, happy to report for 2018, we've already been able to get 175 properties in Walker County into compliance. Last year, our records show we got 480 in compliance. So we're well marching on our way to surpass that. And if we can get 500, 600, 700 properties every year in compliance, we'll get this county cleaned up in no time. Fire department, total responses, they had a big month in April, 536. I had Chief Blake Hodge and Assistant Chief Nathan Farrow on the talk show with me last night. Had a great time talking with them and understanding our responses. And we talked about how we're on pace to respond to most likely over 6,000 calls in 2018, because we are responding to more different types of calls as far as people with trouble breathing, people possible heart attacks and things, to be that first responder, to be there to put those life support methods in place to help save as many of our citizens as we can, because every minute that you go without oxygen to your brain, the chances of recovery drop dramatically. So we want to work to respond as quickly as possible. So you see there in our quick response vehicle, we did 448 of those calls. So those were calls that were run with our smaller trucks so they can get there quicker, safer, and they have the life-saving equipment on those trucks. It still is an incredible number that we're collecting 10,000, 12,000 pounds of trash off of our roadside every month. So April we had 10,060 pounds of trash picked up. Mountain Cove Farms has become a hit. We had 46 nights rented out in March. We had 58 in April. That brings our total for 2018 to 131. Back in 2016, they only had 162 for the entire year. We had 525 total last year. We will probably pass that number this year. So all the way through April, we've had 131 nights stayed in Mountain Cove Farms. Planning, we had 10 new family home permits for single family home construction. So when people tell you that nobody wants to move to Walker County, tell them they don't know what they're talking about. Because year to date, we've already had 48 permits pulled for the year for new home construction. Last year we had 135 in 2017, so we have people that are coming to our community and we welcome that growth. Our public relations with Joe had been able to capture 56 media impressions and stories that local media run, whether it be radio, TV, newspaper. We added 131 new Facebook followers, and Joe was able to get 40 posts out. And we continue to have a lot of people visit our website as we put more and more information on our website. So we had 31,417 visits to our website. Also on our website you can sign up for our newsletter. How many of you in the room get the monthly newsletter by email? That's not enough. That's only about a third of it. So you can go to our website and put in your name and email address, and usually about the first couple of days of the month, Joe does an outstanding job of creating a Walker County newsletter that comes to you by email that just kind of gives you about a 5-minute recap of all the positive things going on in Walker County. So we don't sell your email address or use it any other way. It's strictly to provide you more information about what's going on in your county and how you can be more involved. The big topic of the year is patching and filling in potholes. So we started tracking that. I got tired of people saying, y'all not fixing any potholes. Well, we're counting them now. So in the month of March, we patched 609 potholes.
Wow.
April, we did 294 because they got on some other projects with storm drain cleanouts and stuff. We don't have any data of this in prior years, but already in 2018, we have patched or filled in 1,623 potholes. So hopefully there's one near you that's been filled. I hope. Because I know we got them everywhere. Potholes knows no exclusions. Another important thing that we do in our Walker County government is our transit service. We have many people use the transit for transportation to and from work, doctor appointments, being able to get to the grocery store, and so it's a big part of what we do in Walker County. So we started tracking that data. Back in March, we had 1,954 trips. So that means we picked up and delivered 1,954 times. Month of April, it was 1,789 for a total year-to-date of 7,132 trips. So if anyone ever tells you that the transit is a waste, or it's not needed, or nobody rides it, or that brings no value to our community, I've got about 1,700 trips a month that would argue that point. So it's a very important part of what we do. It's partially grant funded by the state and federal government, and then they share that cost with us to allow us to provide that service. That is the end of our regular scheduled meeting. We'll adjourn the meeting and we'll open up the floor to any public discussion, comment. Anyone that would like to speak, if you would please come up to the podium.
Roger, and I live in Mount Cold. And I'm here talking about chickens. And I know you guys are in a position that you can't talk to us about chickens. So we thought we'd come maybe talk to you a little bit about chickens. Now, I've got some other people here with me from Mountain Cold that will address you as well. Shannon, and I know there's a lot of rumors floating around about what's going on. Probably a lot of misinformation. I don't think it's all misinformation. I am opposed to it. Not just Mount Cole, I'm opposed to it for Walker County. I don't think it's a good deal. I can guarantee you for those people like me that live in the cold, it's not a good deal. And as time marches on, you guys are gonna hear more and more about it. Now, with me tonight is Ruth Almeida. And I may get this wrong, and if I do, you'll just have to correct me. She is the president of the McLemore Coal Historic Preservation Society, and she'd like to talk to you all just a little bit.
Okay.
She's also new to Walker County.
Okay, thank you, George. Welcome to Walker County.
I know, thank you. I was going to say I'm probably the newest resident in the room. I'm Ruth Almeida. My family and I just moved down from Alexandria, Virginia about a month ago. And 2 years ago this May, we bought the old Sibley place on Hawkjow Road in Chickamauga. So we've been working real hard up in Alexandria, putting all of our dollars together to get some land and raise kids and cattle. We have 4 little ones, and I'm expecting number 5. And we did a lot of searching, being close to the Shenandoah Valley. It was absolutely beautiful up there. And when we came and visited here and saw the property and the cove, and it was the first thing we thought of was that it reminded us of Shenandoah Valley. It's absolutely stunning. And then we did as much research as we could on the area and all of the historical value to it. I mean, right on the corner of my road is the Martin Davis, you know. I mean, my mother-in-law was just in town. She just couldn't believe how many historical sites we had and different things. And it's absolutely pristine and beautiful. And it's to everyone's credit that it's been kept that way. So nothing could have, so 2 points. So 1, we got your letter up in Alexandria. We hadn't moved down yet, talking about new commissioner. Here's the state of finances of the county. Taxes are going up. And we read that letter. No one wants to hear the taxes are going up, but I just absolutely was so thankful for your transparency as to the dollars and cents of the matter, and that we were in a world of hurt and we needed to get out of it. So we were happy to take it on the chin. Everyone has to do their part, and this is great. We want to get in the black, you know. So that being said, we just moved down, and one of the first things we heard was that right a mile from my property is going to be the potential site for Pilgrim's Pride to move their facility out of Chattanooga and come take over the old carpet factory that's now Volkswagen, is using it for cars. And here's the thing. So my husband called, no one can talk about it, non-disclosures. We were in the real estate business up in Alexandria, Virginia, so I understand contracts and contingencies, and until things are removed, people can't talk about things. But there's a sale pending on that property. It's online, public information. So, I mean, it is a little frustrating to just have, where there's smoke, there's fire, and everyone's swirling. I mean, the things I've heard were Chattanooga is over that property, and they took away all their tax exemptions, you know what I mean, for Pilgrim's Pride, because all they do is violations. So they want them out. People hate the stink. And then Herd Pilgrim's Pride is gonna consolidate 3 other sites from around the south there. So it's gonna be the largest chicken processing plant in the south. What else I hear? Oh, that you all have offered them 15 years tax-free to come down here and come to Walker County. What else did I hear? I mean, the list goes on. People just kind of, that it's gonna happen. Oh, that it's a done deal, that it's not a done deal, that there's 2 other sites being considered. Nobody knows. And so the rumor mill starts, and again, I'm sure there's a lot of misinformation, and I'm sure some of it's factual. I just can't express how shocked I am that anyone would think it's a good idea to put that size of an operation in one of the best things Walker County has going for it. I've seen the turnaround with like the Cove Farms, and my husband just went to the Bluegrass Festival, and you cannot have both of these things coincide in the same, we can't have the beautiful Cove with all of its tranquility and, bring the Ironman through, and then have, trucks and trailers going down the road 1,000,000 miles a minute. One of the first things I thought when I moved there was, this is really far from town. It's really far to get to the big interstates and the highways. This is the last place that we want to be moving anyone in and out of, And again, my reference is the Shenandoah Valley and how they've tried to protect that. And they've had, and you know what? It's not always, it can be frustrating sometimes because it means that you have to develop it in a certain way. I'm not for not using that and not developing that and not having any development, but it has to be the right kind of development that's suitable to the area. And that 4-way stop is not suitable to bring this in. And then here comes the problem. I hear all this stuff swirling. We just put every red cent we've ever made into a property. That chicken facility would greatly damage that property and every other property in the Cove, period. No one's gonna tell me that chickens don't stink, and no one's gonna tell me that that's not gonna change the way that life is lived in a very rural community. That's just not the case, You can't bring 2,000 jobs in traffic and say, oh, nothing's gonna change. That's just not common sense. So, my frustration comes that there's all of this going on, and then you can't get any kind of straight talk on what's the situation because of a non-disclosure, and so you just feel like your hands are tied, that we're just gonna sit here and wait till a deal is done here or elsewhere. And the open forum on the animal ordinance is wonderful, and you're being so transparent on that, and that's wonderful. And then we hear swirls of something like this happening, and all of this is beside the fact that Pilgrim's Pride does not seem to be a great company. You Google them for more than 10 minutes. They were fined by the Department of Labor in 2016 for discrimination against African Americans and women on hiring. They've treated chickens badly, they treat their employees badly. The residents in Florida, when their state government wouldn't sue them for dumping stuff in the Swanee River, a couple of private citizens got together and they went and did it, and they won, and they got $1.5 million. So they don't seem to be necessarily the best kind of company, and that's even besides the point. That type of quantity of employees and trucks and produce coming in and out, the roads can't support it. What are we gonna do, make a 6-lane highway out of Hog Jowl Road? I just assume. So these are just a lot of my concerns, amongst others, and I think it's important to preserve the Cove and its beauty for the county. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I understand that we're wanting, to get out of the red, to improve homes, to help people. To really help with some county turnaround, which is awesome. So why would we want to even touch one of our great assets? You know what I mean? So that just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So those are kind of a number of my concerns now. And my last point would be, if we are considering other sites, I'm thankful to hear that. One of them would be, I know we have a new industrial park, with one, as far as I know, with one industry in it.
That's right.
And online it says it's 400 acres, so This property is 350 acres. An already built industrial park that wasn't free, it cost us money to get that set up. Sounds like a much better place to put a new industry for Walker County than on the middle of a country road headed into the cove. So those are just, I hope to say all this very respectfully.
Absolutely.
You know, as a brand new resident, I feel a little bit out of water considering, you know, I'm coming in guns blazing and I've been here a month. But we've owned the property 2 years and your all's history is my family's future and I'm as invested as I can be. Okay, wow. So those are my thoughts, concerns. Thank you. Well, your guys' history is my future.
I'm Michael Smith. I've been involved in the McLemore Cove Preservation Society for a long time. Appalled by the idea. We finally got Reichelt out of there. We were hoping that something would happen with Barwick so we could get that out of there. Interestingly enough, those things happened because my grandfather made a real estate agreement selling that property back in 1960. And the agreement was that there'd be no industry on the property.
Which property are you speaking of?
Where Reichelt was, it was the old Miller Stock Farm and the Barwick property. And Jim Andrews lied and sold the property. My grandfather kicked himself until the day he died because he shook hands with a man and the man didn't do what he said he'd do. So here we are. We have a chicken place in McLemore Cove, one of the largest historical districts in the United States, the only one in the state of Georgia. And we're going to bring that to bear. We're considering legal action, and we're also going to have a PR campaign. Dead set against it. We've heard talk about, and Bruce mentioned it, the tax abatement. We've got highway issues. It's going to cost the county to do that. We're going to give them a tax abatement. Then we're going to have increased highway expenses. It takes a gallon of chicken slaughter. It's 1 million gallons. If you do 1 million gallons a month, 1 million chickens a month, if they're talking about doing, this is all rumor. It could be a lot more than 1 million. And where's the water going to come from? Chickamauga Creek? The Kensington Water District? Going to run a pipe up from Atlanta or down from Chattanooga? Who's going to pay for that? Also for housing. And McLemore Cove is a rural area. We're supposed to have a 5-acre limit for a residence. It's not enforced. How's that going to work out? And we got Chickamauga Creek right behind this place. We're going to contaminate Chickamauga Creek like they did down the Missouri River. So anyway, just know there's a group of us that are willing to put our money on the line to stop this thing, and or at least slow it down. And the McLemore Cove Preservation Society is involved in it. So we would like to know what's going on. It'd be good if we could know what was happening.
One thing I'll speak to real quickly, it's a little different, but you mentioned about the 5-acre minimum just to break off agricultural land. Since I've been in office, I've not approved any partials that are agriculture to be split off less than 5 acres. Now, that's not to say that somebody somewhere has not done something without county proper approval of the planning and zoning. And that's not to say that previous administrations didn't make some exceptions to that rule. But I think that's something that's is a very good ordinance that a lot of counties in the state of Georgia utilize to keep agricultural land as agriculture, but allows a family, if they want to sell off 5 acres, if they have a son or daughter or whatever that wants their own place and they need to deed it off to be able to get a construction loan or something, that's really what that's intended for. But I definitely have a great love for the Cove, the McLemore Cove myself, and we're going to be working also on some campaigns about Walker County and all the natural treasures that we have to share with people, and everything that Pigeon Mountain and the caves and the hiking and the biking and all the things that we have that doesn't cost us anything, that we can help promote to bring tourism in and people to use those things without us having to go build or go into debt for anything else. So
Absolutely, I mean.
getting people involved and letting them know about the beauty is very important.
So, back to what Ruth said, so don't stick, let's stop a gigantic chicken processing plant stuck in the middle of what you just talked about.
Well, I
It'll
think,
detract, I'm not anti-development, I'm a businessman, I got a business in Chattanooga, I employ people, I know we can't control what people do with their private property. But, government can not assist, in the, I don't know how the county benefits. I don't see how I don't know what it's gonna bring. It's gonna bring a lot of, people traveling to and from Chattanooga and around. There's not a workforce base in that area for that plant. So, anyway, thanks Shannon, thanks y'all.
Robert, do you have anything at this time? Anything you want to
Sure. We can
add?
talk about
Let me introduce Robert Wardlaw. He's our executive director now of the, for Walker County for
sorry, Joe.
our Development Authority. He was formerly our chairman, and I asked him to come into this role back a few months ago, back the 1st of March. So I'll let him start out and address some of these concerns.
Sure, I'm hearing a lot about this. George and I had a conversation about this at the Development Authority meeting on Tuesday, and I want to address some of the frustrations. I hear these common themes. I'm hearing a lot of what we've just heard tonight, and then I'm hearing also from people that are calling me with the exact opposite position, saying, don't you dare let these people talk you out of exploring opportunities that get us out of debt and opportunities that raise wages. So what's going on, what's different about this particular situation that you all are alluding to? And of course, I know the same, I hear the same thing out there. What's different about this one is that people are talking to other people that don't know what it is yet that they're talking about. And I think this is coming from employees of the Chattanooga plant that you're talking about. That's what I think is happening here. So if you'll bear with me, I just want to talk just for a minute and explain the process of what really happens in these business deals. The one that you're talking about here, if it is in fact happening, that would be happening all the time. Every single day I'm talking to these companies. And in the role that I'm in, I would be the person that would be the point person that would be receiving things from the state of Georgia or from site selectors. You want me to say what a site selector is? Most of you probably know, but these companies, when they think about expanding or growing business or moving their business, they hire a site selector, S-I-T-E. The site selectors look all around the country, in Canada, Mexico, and often in Asia as well. But for this point, I'm going to just stick to the general United States and Mexico and Canada. And they say there's a company that wants to invest $100 million in a new business. They're going to hire 1,000 employees, and so they look for places that might be suitable. And all of us developing authorities, everyone around the country, most everyone has a website that shows properties that are available. So these site selectors they're working nonstop. They may have a team of 5 people scouring the internet throughout the country, and they're trying to say, well, there's a possibility, there's a possibility. So let's say that they find 28 reasonable locations. What they do then is they'll call me and say, hey, we noticed that you have a property in Walker County that is of interest to my client. And I say, well, okay, well, what about, who are they? Well, I can't tell you that. They don't tell anybody. And the reason that they don't, I'm friends, I'm coming to you from the other side of this now. I'm representing you now. My life has been in the Coca-Cola business around the country, being the other person that is looking for places to develop, okay? Now I'm working every day for you to screen out these candidates and find out if they're good for us. And my daughter represents the 7th generation of us here in Walker County. We've been here for as far back as we can find records. Nobody in here loves Walker County more than I do or my family does. Equally, yes, but more, not a chance. Not a chance of that. So I'm honored to get the chance to be your representative that takes these calls. So I say to them, sure, we'll talk to you. I want to learn more. Then they start cutting down, and you make a cut, usually about 8 cuts. And they may cut from 80 places to 20 to 10. Then they get down to 8 or 6. And they say, okay, now we're getting serious about it. You guys, we are interested in what you have. So at that point, they come. We still have no idea who it is. The state of Georgia puts a project name on it, a code name. For instance, I just got one a couple of weeks ago. It's called Project Gingerbread. All I know about it is that they are a German baker of pastries. But they got a lot of money they want to spend. They said, are you interested in my client? Well, yes, we're interested. We always are interested. Well, you've got 4 places in your county that are of interest to us. Okay, so that's how that starts. Don't know who it is, don't know exactly what they want to do. So now let's go back to, we're in the final 6, let's say. That's when they usually start getting serious about it. They'll call and say, we want to come see this site. Will you meet us over there? You bet. So the site selector shows up, I show up, hey, how you doing? I'm representing Walker County. And they say, hey, I'm representing a company that I'm not going to tell you who it is yet. And if I said, why not? Then here's what they're going to say. Number 1, if somebody finds out that we're a successful company, the real estate price is going to go through the roof. We ain't telling you. Number 2, I don't want my competitors to know because I believe this is a good place to come. I don't want them to find out. Then I'm in a bidding war for that against my competitors. And number 3, we're not even sure if we're going to do this yet, and I don't want my employees upset. And that makes a lot of sense to me, having been on the other side. I never told them it's big, giant Coca-Cola that's interested in building a plant here. That real estate would be jacked up 10 times immediately. So at this point, I say, before we're going to go any further with you, you're going to tell us who you are. You're going to tell us what your starting wage rate is going to be, because we don't accept new business that is not going to elevate the average wages for our citizens. That's number 2. And then we'll say the other things like you're going to have to go through all the Georgia environmental study. You're going to have to do everything by the book, and we're sitting here watching every step of what you do.
Right. You also need to make the point that the site has to have the availability of the services that they need to operate. In other words, power, gas, water,
yes,
sewage, and transportation. That rules out the site that they're complaining about.
And now they do
I
that.
would think so.
They do that separate from us. They contact Georgia Power, TVA, those companies. They do their research with them, the same as they're doing for us for a site. So now the site selector says, if you want more information, and they reach into the bag and say, sign this right here. It is a non-disclosure agreement. It happens in every single deal that happens in the United States of America, my friends. Every one of them. I'm getting some calls of people like, this is new thing. Why are you doing? Every single deal that is done in the United States, every last one of them. You just don't hear about it. So I say, sure, I'll sign that, and I'll agree to be quiet while the company tests us and I'm testing them. And at that point, I go to the commissioner and I say, hey, we have opportunity here. Then we start doing our research on them like they've been doing on us. And then we scrutinize everything about the conditions of what is their wage rate. That is a big one right there, always, to understand. You're gonna have to elevate wage rates. Number two, for any new deals coming around here, if you're gonna start asking about incentives, just know right now, we do not abate school taxes. All right, a bunch of them, well then never mind. And off they go, and we say, thank you. We respectfully say, thank you. We shake their hand. If you're not gonna abate school taxes, we're not coming. And we say, thank you very much, respectfully, for your time. We appreciate that you had interest. We represent us with politeness. I don't want y'all to think we're saying, well, get out of here. We don't do that. We're very professional, but we say, from today forward, we don't abate school taxes. That's over with around here. Our schools need the funding, full funding. I don't care how big the deal is. We just don't do it anymore. Now, it has been done, that's for darn sure. But you're gonna raise wages and you're not going to expect school tax abatements. And if they say, that's fine, because we want an educated workforce, then we know we've got somebody we can talk to. Then you start competing against the other communities. And you learn exactly who the company is, and then sometimes we'll go visit the company ourselves to put our feet and our eyes on the company and understand what they really do. Is it going to be good for us? That's why, for anybody that tells you that you don't want me to sign a non-disclosure, with the greatest amount of respect, I'm trying to tell you, don't listen to that, because what would happen is you don't get any opportunity to even find out if it's good. Last step here, and then I'm going to sit down. The last step is the company says, we picked you under the conditions that you laid out. We have chosen you. All right, that doesn't mean anything yet. All right, now at that point, the commissioner and I have now analyzed this for the financial and social impact on our county. If it's a strong deal that'll help these young people in this county, that for years, people like me, I left to go around the country with Coca-Cola because I wanted to make something of myself at the time. I wanted to be something, and there was not opportunity. By golly, knew I was coming back, but I had to leave first to build security. I want the young people to have that now. And if we have a company that's offering multiple management jobs and a pathway to keep our smart kids here and not have to leave and then come back in retirement, we are going to look at opportunities for those young folks. And sometimes it's not pleasing to everyone, but at times you got to make the right call and at least understand what the deal is. And if it helps young people, we've advanced our county to the positive. So at that point, what's going to happen is there would be a memorandum of understanding. It's commonly called an MOU. That's where the lawyers get together and write down exactly what each other demanded of the other and agreed to. Now it becomes formalized. At that point, if the commissioner supports the idea, if I recommend to him this is good for us and he agrees, then to the development, if it includes any incentives, the Walker County Development Authority is the only entity in the county that can grant any incentives. I bet a lot of you didn't know that. The commissioner cannot grant incentives. Only the Development Authority. So if the deal doesn't include incentives, it's none of our darn business. That's a private seller and a private business, as long as they're adhering by all the laws for, the state laws and local laws and environmental laws. It has nothing to do with us. When they want incentives, it becomes part of our business. And then the Development Authority would have to approve that. So I will then take that memorandum of understanding to the Development Authority and say, here is a deal pending your approval. And then I would explain to them the details. I will show them all the details of that deal. And then that board says, heck yeah, or we need more clarification. Or they could say just no. So that's what happens. And those meetings, all of those meetings are public meetings. It's important to know that. All Development Authority meetings. So the idea that I've heard that, oh, somebody's under the cover of darkness and all, it can't be done in the cover of darkness. But this period of time here where the company and the community's feeling each other out, that's what's covered in the non-disclosure. And that part is where nobody's going to talk about it. Because if you do, you're done. And I can't even present you an idea that might help us if I'm sitting here talking about it and breaking a contract.
So there's no way for this to just be a done deal, we
It
find
can't
out,
be.
it
It
was just,
can't.
happen and that's it.
It can't be done
That's
like that.
great. Two,
So-
you mentioned that code name of the gingerbread, and that, in your example, it was said before you signed the non-disclosure. Was there a code name on this deal?
Yeah, well, it depends on whether this deal is real or not.
Well, is it or not? I mean, you can't
We
even,
have-
if it's a real deal or not, it can't be a part of the non-disclosure.
Stinky chicken putting you in hot water.
I mean,
Robert's done an excellent job.
you have, I really appreciate
stepping
all the
through this.
details in the
Well,
process, that feels
You know,
great.
and this is why I brought this type of talent into my administration.
Yes.
Because I need someone that's been on the other side of the table,
Yeah.
that knows the ropes, knows the way this all happens, to come and represent on our side of the table.
Yep.
So I brought this man out of retirement. Okay, seriously. Robert was retired.
I know
But
I'm
he
too
loves-
young. I'm way too young for that. I
He
know.
loves this county, this city,
Yeah.
and he's seventh generation. And the last thing he or I either one are going to do is bring anything to this community that we feel like is going to damage our heritage, our community, and most importantly, our environment. There's no deal out there big enough to damage any of those things. One thing that Robert didn't cover, there's a lot of these deals, as he indicated, that when we have this non-disclosure and then we get more information, we say no. It's not always the other side. We get into the non-disclosure and we find out, oh, they're going to pay $8 an hour. We don't need that. We got places now that are paying $10 and $12 an hour. Why do we need more $8 an hour? We need places that's going to elevate that wage. Okay? We have some that, if somebody used this the other day, if somebody says, well, we're going to bring in a nuclear waste dump. We don't need that. But already this year, this man and I have spent a lot of miles on the road going and visiting companies that have interest in Walker County that we want to see how they do business. We want to meet their people, their management, go into these other communities. We want to find out what they're really all about. They come here to check us out. We want to go on their turf and check them out. And kind of our policy, if we can drive it in about 7 or 8 hours, we're going to hit the road, we're going to go find them. And so we do that as part of our due diligence process. But those that we say no to, or those companies that say no to us, that non-disclosure still stands. If somebody come up and they have us sign a non-disclosure and they come up and we find out it's a nuclear waste dump, we can't come tell you, hey, so-and-so company wants to do this, and we told them no. Aren't you proud of us? We still have to honor that non-disclosure, because all these companies out here looking, all those reasons he outlined that they don't want that out, plus we don't want to embarrass a company and say in the headlines, Walker County turned down XYZ company. You know, that's going to make them look bad. It may just be that it's not the right fit. Or they may come back 5 or 10 years later with some new high-tech technology and say, hey, you've still got a place over here that we want to bring this. And we go, oh, that changes everything. So you never burn those relationships and burn those bridges, because you never know what the next deal may bring to bear. Or you're dealing with a site selector. A site selector is somewhat like a realtor. They're going to represent many people, many companies in their career. So if you have that non-disclosure and we breach it, that site selector with us, they're done. They will never, ever, ever deal with us to bring us any other opportunity that will lift our community. And so, yeah, that's a good word. We're blackballed because they're going to say the key word that we're working in this government with you as citizens, the key word that we think about every single day is trust. We need you to trust us. We need people to trust us in these agreements. And if there's no trust, we can't move forward. In any organization, at home, in business, anything, if you don't have and you lose that trust, everything falls apart when the trust falls apart. Yep. And so that's why my administration, we work to hold public meetings after business hours. We do these things to build that trust, to change the culture, to change the reputation, to try to move us forward. And so some people will say, well, anything that y'all do from economic development, we want to vote on it. Folks, unfortunately, that's not the way the system works anywhere in America, that you're going to vote on a development that comes into a community. You have to trust the people that elect you. And you say, well, that's just not right. Well, think about it this way. We have to trust our president and our Congress whether or not to declare war. I mean, that's serious stuff. They don't say we're going to have a national election and we're going to determine if we're going to go to war with X country. We have to trust that they have information that we don't have, and they have their best interests for our country at heart, and they know what has to be done to protect America. We know what has to be done to protect our county from an environmental standpoint. Another thing, since I've been in this office, I've got to interact and engage more with the department in Georgia over environmental protection. Great people, but they're serious about our environment and the conditions of anything coming in to anywhere in the state of Georgia. Little old Walker County up here, folks, they're looking at the state as a whole. Mm-hmm. And so when you get a company coming in, you know, of any company, they're going to have to do everything by the book. There's no grandfathering in. So when you have a facility like the old Barwick Mill, if some little small company came in and just wanted to move right in, what can we do? The building facility is grandfathered in. Someone of significant size is going to say, that building doesn't work, the ceilings are too low, this. We got to bulldoze this down and start over. So anytime you get a company that's going to come and do a new build, or they buy a piece of raw land and they're doing a new build, they've got to come in every building code, every zoning, every state regulation, federal regulation, Georgia EPD, EPA, everything is by the book. There's no grandfathering in. And so they're not going to allow them in 2018 to come in and create problems. And so, as Robert indicated, when a company is looking, we tell them, you've got to get with the state if there's anything that you've got to have a state permit for, we're going to sit back and you've got to go through that process to get that permitting to make sure you're in compliance. You know, we're working right now with the development up on the mountain that's been announced to put a resort on the mountain. They've met a couple of times with our leadership in our fire department to make sure their new structure meets our requirements to be able to put fire apparatus and equipment on that site, on that bluff, if they were to have a fire or an emergency, or if the whole mountain catches on fire. See, you could have a fire that starts in the valley and run all the way up that mountain. We've got to have a plan in place that's already being worked on by the engineers and the developers of the what-if worst-case scenario to make sure the positioning of the hotel, the access, the water supply, everything is put in place, worst-case scenario, the whole mountain's on fire. So there's a lot of these things that's done behind the scene to protect our environment, to protect our developments, and to make sure anything that comes into Walker County new is by the book.
And that's, I really appreciate that. And I do know about the, I think it's the Hilton Luxury Resort, you know, coming up there. I'll tell you one thing, if they knew they were gonna be staring down on the biggest chicken processing plant in the southeast, they wouldn't have been as excited about that site. And I don't mean to keep harping.
Let me answer that question.
Okay.
They've heard all
I know they know about it.
They've heard all the rumors. I believe they've talked to someone that you're very close to about it.
Yeah, I live with them. Yeah.
All right? They are fully supportive of what we're doing. We're fully supportive of what they're doing. They understand.
Of what you're doing. Do they know what you're doing? Because we don't know what you're doing.
They've heard all the same rumors.
Yes, they've heard the same rumors.
Okay?
Yes.
They're going to invest $106 million.
Yep.
150 now.
Oh, it's 150 now.
Yes.
Which is awesome. I mean, it's awesome. It's
Okay.
totally awesome.
All right. Do you
I'm not
think?
anti-development. That's
think
great
about this
for
a
our
second.
county.
Think about this a second. Right now, it's a golf course.
Right. Bankrupt 3
trees.
times.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. If you think that they were concerned, do you think they would throw $100+ million in?
Well, I mean, I think that
They're at a point now they could turn back. There's no agreement with the county that they cannot walk away from.
yeah, I'm sure they have.
They could come up and just say, you know, Commissioner, we just changed our mind.
Yeah.
Deal closed. It's done.
Yeah.
There's no
I mean,
recourse.
What I'm saying is, it's great that we're making everybody do things by the book. I didn't think anyone was going to bring in someone that they knowingly thought was going to cheat or damage the water or do anything like that.
One of y'all said something about stuff stinking.
Yeah, chickens stink.
Okay, in today's technology, in today's environmental concerns and regulations,
Ventilation.
you cannot bring in any industry into the state of Georgia that stinks.
What about the online complaints from people in the stadium down in Chattanooga that they were gagging because of this?
Okay, that's Tennessee. I can't talk for Tennessee. I don't know their regulations. I'm just saying a new. Y'all listen to me here. Listen to me here. In the state of Georgia, if a new facility is built, you cannot bring an industry into the state of Georgia that stinks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
So, if people want to talk about stuff stinking, how many of you do land apply to chicken waste? I bet your neighbors love you when you do that.
They do for a day.
For a day or two until the rain comes, right?
Right.
Okay. So, but industry cannot do that. Farmers can. You talk about putting cows on your property.
Yeah.
They're going to have a little smell to them, right?
Yeah.
You can do that as a farmer.
Yeah, that is a good thing.
A business owner to run a business or an industry or manufacturing cannot do that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
so you've got protections and exemption as agriculture that they don't have as an industrial property. So think about that.
That's great. Hey, I know, when my husband talked to the people on the hotel, I mean, they were absolutely, we've heard, and if it stinks, we'll make a big stink, you know? Because they trust the fact that it's not gonna stink. all of this leads me to think, to someone's point, that this is actually happening. And I understand the non-disclosure and the deals, completely understand, and know about site selection and that, but I'm just saying, from what both of you have already said this evening, the Cove is a gem. We need to preserve it. We need to actually maximize it for our county. The rock climbing, I already had family come. They're amazed by how beautiful this little, they just think like this is this hidden gem. And even if a company is following every rule by the book, the roads are not ready, that amount, the labor force is not there. You're not gonna find 2,000 people in the Cove to go work there. The 10 managers, great. I absolutely support, I'm from rural Ohio. Supporting people who can live in their hometowns and get good paying jobs is awesome. I'm not against any of these things. I just, because this is our only venue to talk about it, because there is a non-disclosure, I just want to be as emphatic as I can that putting this in our only historic preserved area, once you do that, you can't go back, and you can't have both.
Here's what the state of Georgia has the ability to do. If there's an industry that comes in, they have to get air permits. And if those air permits are not being followed, and any industry is creating any type of pollutant, smell, anything that's going into the air, anything like that, the state pulls the permit. When the state pulls the permit...
I guess that started after Ryckoff was already left.
Well, that's the
They
thing,
stopped all the time.
that's stuff are grandfathered in, but anything new going forward, they have to have air permits. And so if things don't meet the state standard for air permit of air quality, they fine them, they pull their permits, they can shut them down.
Seems like when that building burned down there, they had a tar running around with air, catching air all around our houses and everywhere, make sure the air wasn't polluted as bad as they said it was.
So, this is, we're very ingrained in this community. I have young children. Robert has children. We want to be here the rest of our lives. And the last thing that we want to do is bring any business at any location in Walker County into our county that's going to be a negative impact on our county. Any other?
When I hear that, it makes me feel like you're guaranteeing me it's not coming, because that makes me want to trust you.
Yes, ma'am.
In Chattanooga, to defend this business, right next door, there is actually a wedding venue. And back during October, a friend of mine got married there and you couldn't smell a thing. That's all I'm gonna say about it.
That's
Okay.
good.
Yes, ma'am.
Just out of curiosity, do you know the unemployment rate in Walker County? Off the top of your head?
It's about 1,400 people runs about average, which I think is around 3 point something. But it normally runs about 1,400 people or so total.
People need jobs.
Varies a little bit. Yeah. Well, and the thing too, we want people to have opportunities at higher wage jobs, and so that's when people come to us. That's what we're focused on. Somebody come in here and told me, "Hey, we're going to be $2 above minimum wage." I mean, you need to go look somewhere else.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not what we need. We need to raise the level of income to create the opportunity for more retail, good restaurants, good shopping, so we don't have to all go to neighboring counties and neighboring states. We need to bring some of that retail to generate sales tax, to help fund our schools, to help fund our infrastructure, to keep putting all the burden on the property taxes. Well, sometimes through economic development, and we've got one now we've been working with, it's retail. If we can't go into a non-disclosure with them at some point, we're telling a retailer no. So it's not always industry, manufacturing that wants you to do a non-disclosure. It's across all spectrums. So if we put the close sign up, we're telling the next generations to come, you're going to have to leave your county to have a livable wage. Or you're going to have to drive somewhere and be a commuter to have a livable wage. You're not going to be able to survive in Walker County because we put the out of business sign up. And if the businesses don't stay in businesses here over time, I mean, y'all see how the business cycles are. I mean, think, when I was a kid, Sears Roebuck was the place. Kmart was the place.
I'll teach you why.
I mean, if they didn't have it at Kmart or Sears, I usually didn't get it because Mama and Daddy didn't go nowhere but Kmart and Sears. So things change is my point. Our industries that we have are subject to change. So we put the close sign up. At a certain point in time, we may lose some of what we've got. If you're not bringing in something new or being open to it, we're going to sit here and you're going to have a community that's going to dry up.
Ghost town.
Be a ghost town, that's right.
No business.
So, like Robert indicated, one thing that's very important to us is not bringing in something new at any level and putting the burden back on the citizens for something new to come in. And so part of that burden is, and what some of these companies are asking for, is for you to come in and abate multiple years of the school tax. But the interesting thing, and we've talked about this, a lot of companies, if they're going to hire more than about 50 people, one of their top 5 questions, tell us about your school system, tell us your graduation rate, how many schools do you have, and tell us about your technical schools. So why later in the deal do they say, we don't want to pay any school taxes? And it's kind of a, what standard is that? So to develop the upcoming workforce and to educate our families going forward, our school systems have got to be funded. And so we don't need to shift the burden to the property tax owners for some big industry to come in and shift that burden to the property tax owners that the industry is creating the burden. So these are the things we think about and deal with, and we're not afraid to say no. Anybody got anything else on any government topic? It doesn't have to be this topic. This is an open forum for you to address myself and any staff and this man.
The Rossville Clinic moving to Fairview.
Primary health care.
Do you know what street the entrance is gonna be? Is it gonna be Ivy or is it gonna be Circle?
I don't know. I've not been up there. But I think they're supposed to be open up there 1st of June. I think it is.
The concern is Ivy Street's a dead end. And that's gonna be an issue.
Senator Mayor,
Sure, go ahead.
I just spoke with Mrs. Allen in the last week, and she was talking to me about the signs that they want to put up that clarifies all the directions from the old to the new. Now, I'm not speaking for her, I'm just sharing with you that she was asking me about, hey, what about if I put some signs up that make sure everybody knows exactly how to get from the old to the new? So I just wanted to share, wanted to share that with you.
But you don't know what street the entrance they're gonna be using?
No, ma'am, I just know they are aware that they don't want confusion. Because she's taking all the steps to make sure it's very.
So are they moving it into the night or?
My understanding, their desire and hope is to be up and running by June 1. Now, I don't know, I'm assuming they're on track for that.
Yeah.
Is that a permanent site for them or is that just?
I don't think so. I think that's just temporary.
Oh.
They have also purchased a building,
Okay.
so they're leasing, and I think they're going to be working on the renovation. But, things change, I'm not up to speed, but my understanding last was that was just a stopgap.
Glad to hear about the signs though.
All right, anybody else? We've been here a couple hours. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, I got here real late, but is this meeting, what about businesses? Is it not about animal control?
We did animal control hearing at the start at 6 o'clock.
Okay, I'm
And
sorry.
talked about some updates to that. And that there's a web address on there that has the latest information. We got some good comments tonight. And we will be continuing to tweak that. And we'll have another public hearing on that here on the 24th.
Okay, so I need to hear then instead of now, this one.
Yeah, 6 o'clock on the 24th.
Okay. I'm not physical disability limited, when I can, move and when I can't, and where I can't.
Or if you have any questions, you can call the office, and Joe fills a lot of our questions that people have. So you can call and ask for Joe.
I just had a couple of comments to make, but if you write down the office number, because I don't have
Okay, somebody, I think you had a hand up.
Yeah, I'm curious about,
Thank you, brother.
on 193 north, before you get into St. Elmo, on the left-hand side, they've cleared that all out, and they had it marked commercial. I don't know, is that under a non-disclosure?
No, that is a subdivision development.
Okay,
That's being developed by Stephen Henry,
okay.
who's pretty well known of
Townhouses or
doing.
homes? Do you know what it is?
It's going to
Because
be
there's homes, right?
single-family homes
Oh, is it?
to very much complement the subdivision behind it.
Okay, I was very.
So they've gone through their proper zoning and all, but that will be an R1 residential, single-family home
Okay.
dwelling.
My other question is about the roads. I know that you're doing research on what roads need to be done. I missed several meetings. Wanted to know if you've talked about that or what is happening with that.
Good question, talking about our road improvements. You as citizens voted 70% favorable of implementing the T-Splosh. If I can get everybody's attention so everybody can hear, please. But we've implemented the T-Splosh of the 1%. That started April the 1st. And so those fundings will be coming in over the next couple of months. We are working with an engineering firm that's doing an assessment of all our roads to grade and prioritize those as far as condition, safety, also looking at our bridges. And so we'll be compiling a list of how we're going to take and invest that money for the roads from safety issues, also roads, bridges and different things over this 5-year T-Splosh. So right now we don't have any funding. We're in the planning stages. Those plans have not been finalized, so we've not executed on anything. But as we go forward, we will, because we've got a lot of roads that are in really bad shape that have been neglected for decades. Yes, sir.
I got some elderly folks go to their church. They live on 136, past the four-way stop. Goes to the Barwick Plate and Chickamauga. And they were turning in the driveway the other day, and some lady hit them in the rear end, come through that. And they need to be a sign up there, blind driveway, something that you cannot see till they round that curve there.
On 136?
Yes.
Unfortunately, that's a state highway, as far as, as far as what we can do. So you would need to contact the local GDOT office, there's one here in Lafayette, and make that request, because we don't have the authority on any state highway to make any sign additions or changes, just to the county roads.
What about Center Grove Road?
That'd be a county road, I believe.
All right. They saw a paper over last year or so, took out about 7 cross ties and hit 3 or 4 cedar trees. There's no sign around there, on the curb or nothing. Yeah, that right there. About a mile off between 7 highways.
And that, what street is that?
Center Grove Road.
Center Grove Road? You make
What's
that
the
up?
address?
Center Grove.
You know about what street number or landmark?
Mine's 1131. I'm just below that.
So around 1131 is a curve, we need some signs for.
And Jones Road is still, I'm of course, I know we got them, but that, there, people come around on the wrong side of the road, all that road so bad. Need Center Grove Road, got a big old pothole in it, knock the front end out.
We'll get her to pass that to our road superintendent, get him to take a look at that.
They need to look at Jones Road bad, and Center Grove Road, that pothole, it's bad.
Yeah, we definitely can fill some potholes. Getting good at that.
It was so bad, when they striped it, they had to raise the thing up and move it about 5 foot because the paper was pushed up. And it really just wasted time.
Okay, good comment. Anybody, anything else? I know it's getting late, y'all been sitting here a couple hours.
So she got Dripping Springs to that list.
Dripping Springs, yeah, that one's definitely been on the list. Dripping
Figured
Springs
it
is a
had.
problem. Yeah. West Cove Road's real bad too, I know.
Yeah, it is.
Any other public comment? Well, I appreciate y'all coming. We'll be back here same time, same place on the 24th. So be safe and look forward to seeing you then.